Hi, welcome to valuationpodcast.com, a podcast and video series about all things related to business and valuation. My name is Melissa Gragg, and I provide online valuation services for mediation and litigation based in St. Louis, Missouri. Today, we will discuss Donald Trump's tax return, and it's really a case study for divorce attorneys and what to look at in a personal tax return with Jason Soman. He's a valuation expert in Boca Raton, Florida. He owns his own firm, Accounting and Valuation LLC, and he's specializing in business valuation and forensic accounting in the context of divorce. Welcome, Jason. How are
Thank you,
you?
Melissa, for having me. It's a pleasure to be back on.
Now, you had a couple more things that we don't always see a lot of, but you might see, especially in where you have businesses, right? And so when you have losses and you have losses that you can't necessarily take in a certain year, you might have a carry forward. So maybe you want to tell us a little bit about, why this would be important for a divorce attorney.
Absolutely. So, this kind of goes back to where we were talking about with the refunds, right? Like there, there may be kind of, I wouldn't call it a hidden asset, but it's kind of, an asset that you got to think critically about to really not get creative, but try to figure out, is there any assets here that aren't reported, right? And
Hmm.
something that people that are, like we spoke about, taking losses on investments, real estate LLCs, things like that, they generate losses that can accumulate and be used for future years. So just like the refund can be used for future taxes, these losses, may or may not be able to use to be applied to certain income. So, if I'm Melania's forensic accountant or her attorney, I'm going to make an argument that, hey, there's an asset value here for these losses that were generated, let's call it during the marriage, right? If you're looking at line two, there's $8.7 million in carry forwards. Let's just assume it all happened during the marriage that can be applied to future gains, and you spoke about that depreciation or recapture, right? Like, let's say they sell Trump Tower at a huge gain, they may be able to, and I'm not a tax expert, I'm sure there's all types of rules that go into it with passive and active and things like that, and that's beyond the scope of this conversation. But I think it's important that, if I'm in this situation, right, I've identified that there could be an asset here, I have a number of $8.7 million. The next step in this situation was I'd probably say, hey, let me talk to their accountant. Let me really dive deep on this. But like you brought up before, sometimes it's just all about asking the right questions and, putting things on your radar. Sometimes I think people get overwhelmed with reviewing tax returns because it's like, well, how am I going to know all of this, right? Like, you don't need to know all of it. You need to understand where you need to ask the questions. And I
Hmm.
think that, a lot of the times your questions are not because you don't know what you're doing, it's because you don't have additional information, right? Like, we'll want to probably look into which assets generated these losses. Under what circumstances can these losses be used? Can they only
Hmm.
be used for certain things? So these are all things that I'd want to investigate, ask questions, talk to people about, because it's $8 million is a lot of money,
Yeah.
and when you're wealthy, you might be able to use that.
And again, it still is saying that they still have like 56 more million that they can carry forward. And so, like we had a case where we went against an expert that said a client could make, $650,000 for the rest of their lives and never pay taxes. And you have to know if that's true or not.
Mhm.
Is that the reality? Now, in the documentation that we had, it was not the reality. It was that they had gone through that carry forward and now they were in a taxable situation, right?
Mhm.
But another thing that can increase that capacity, that you can borrow basically from the company could be debt. It could be
Mhm.
other factors. So again, like we're belaboring this point, but a number on a tax return does not ever tell you the whole picture. It gives you a clue of where to go next, but it really is just the tip of the iceberg, because, for these guys, are they never going to pay taxes? I can't necessarily say that that's true. Like, this carry forward could be only applicable to certain types of situations.
Mm-hmm.
And as the other thing is, if you are the attorney or you are the person going through the divorce, you have to advocate for the process. If you don't understand something and it's a little bit above your pay grade, pull in somebody else that can give you that information, or you can understand it fully, or ask for more underlying documents. You don't have to just stop in that capacity.